So I've not watched anything since the Canucks since the end of the second round, since they were kicked out by Edmonton. I did this on purpose. This season was so good, so enjoyable, that many points during the season watching games, I just sat in awe and just soaked it in. It almost seemed to be too good to be true, especially given the last 10 years of how things have gone for this club. Even midway, watching them dissect teams easily and watching the comebacks, which were a little concerning. Getting through all that, the way that everyone was playing, Miller, Demko, Pettersson, Hughes, Höglander, Joshua, the third line, and then the trades. Come the end of the season, I will say, hopes were high. My hopes were. But of course, we know the results. We were close. We were pretty darn close. A second round exit with our third string goalie, a sputtering Pettersson, a laboring injured Hughes. Again, I haven't watched the year-end conference, so I'm going to do that in a second here. And Miller on shadowing the best player in the world to take away from his offense. So what I want to do is have a first reaction to the end of season press conferences. Traditionally, I don't put much stock into what they say. I've seen enough player interviews over the years to know that it's not really what they're saying. It's really what they don't say. And then also I love watching for their nonverbals, their body language, their facial expressions to help fill in the blanks to fill in our guesses about what actually happened. So I'm going to watch for the first time the year-end press conference.
Quinn, start with you. After a couple of days to reflect and look back, how do you look back on both the season as a whole and then the way the series against Edmonton ended ultimately?
Yeah, it's still early and it's tough to, think about the whole year this quickly. And I'm sure in the next couple of weeks when I go home, get my feet up and you'll think about it some more. But obviously really proud of the team and the steps we took this year. And it was a great season. I thought we built a lot, and I thought a lot of different guys stepped up in the playoffs, and hopefully we can carry that into next year. And obviously disappointing the way it ended, and it feels like it was so abrupt, but really proud of everything we accomplished, and I think that we'll use this as a momentum into next season.
He reminds me of Joe Sakic. Quiet, understated, spoke on the ice versus off the ice. What a difference in his style of captain. We've had mostly soft-spoken captains, I think, over the years. For sure, now that I'm just thinking about it. And Quinn fits right in there, but he reminds me a lot more like Joe Sakic.
Just sort of talk us through the timeline with everything that happened with you leading up to Game 7 when you sort of realized you were going to be able to play and how difficult that was to go through.
Excuse me.
Yeah, so I'll just explain the whole scenario to get it over with. Took a shot Game 1 on the power play, had a bruise there. My leg was feeling fine, and then about a week later, my calf started really hurting. So we got it checked out, and I had some, I think a clot in one of my small veins, which wasn't an issue, so I was allowed to continue to play. And then we got another scan after Game 5 and 6. I got a scan the next morning after Game 6 and showed that there was more clotting that moved into my deep vein. And I think I wasn't expecting that going into that. I didn't really understand, I think, so it was like an emotional morning for me. And, to get told that news after, you're giving all your energy with your teammates into these playoffs and really striving and pushing for, the ultimate goal, to get that kind of swept out from under you, not to be out there in Game 7 with these guys that hurt.
He played great. I mean, he looked like he was injured a little bit laboring, but man, he was, what a continuation of the season. Career high, and he carried on right through the playoffs. Good on you, Brock, for what a season. What a great season. Great job.
Petey, I know that players don't like talking about injuries during the playoffs and while they're still playing. Did an injury have any impact on, maybe your decline in numbers late in the season and into the playoffs?
Yeah, I've been playing with a bad knee since January, or it's been like a nagging injury. So the longer it went, the more pain I felt. But yeah.
Is it something that's going to require more off-season work?
No, it just needs time to heal, time to rest, then rehab as soon as I get back home again.
Yes, everyone knows since, and I'll do another video about it. For me, there was no other reason that he was playing as poorly as he was. I mean, he was not the same Pettersson that any close resemblance of the Pettersson that played in the regular season. I'm going to do a video on that, but watching his face, there's something. I think he was injured, but then the reports afterwards that hit social by certain reporters saying he wasn't injured. I'm torn on that, and I'll do a whole video on that because I got some information during the summer after this that speaks to that. But very curious, very interesting.
Nashville did everything they could to be physical on you. Was there any more to what happened there? Were you dealing with any injuries as the playoffs went?
No, I mean, I think that at this time of the year, everyone's feeling tired or has something going on or a little soreness. But, for me, I felt good and good enough to play at my best, and that's what I tried to do.
And you can see he was struggling. He wasn't the same. He wasn't even 60% of the same Quinn Hughes that we got to see all this year. I mean, Hughes is an incredible difference maker with his skating, his ability to create. I wonder because I didn't see him play ever, was Bobby Orr. They said that about him, that he would create so much separation and it looked like he wasn't even skating or trying, and guys would blow past him or miss him completely. I mean, that's the ability Hughes has. I'm not saying Quinn Hughes is Bobby Orr, but I mean, what's the comparables in this day and age when grown NHL men are falling down trying to chase Quinn Hughes, and he just puts on his edges and blows past them, and guys are falling down. Like, how do you explain that? That was not the Quinn Hughes we got in the playoffs. That's my only point here.
Rock, just to follow up a little bit, prognosis, any cause for concern moving forward? Is it going to impact your summer and ability to train in any way?
No, I'm on blood thinners, so I just got to be careful, if you cut yourself or hit your head. So, but no, I'm good to train and skate.
Casey, you played in Nashville on the Friday night. You practiced on the Saturday. I remember talking to you after practice. You were in good spirits. Everything seemed pretty normal. Can you just enlighten us a little bit on the injury and the timeline there of when you knew that there was something that was going to keep you out of that Sunday game?
Yeah, in that game 3, there was a play with like a minute and a half, 2 minutes left where I kind of fell back and caught myself on my groin. I felt a pop. The next day, it didn't feel super great in practice. So yeah, it was kind of like a precautionary decision, not made by me. I wanted to play through it. But since we were already down Demmer, they decided to go with Artie, and obviously Artie played great. And we came back and won that game 4. So that's kind of what happened with me. And then I was good enough to back up and practice, through the rest of the playoffs. So it was more of just like a one game. Got nicked at the end of that game 3, and then just tried to rehab it as best I could and play through it, practice through it, and I felt fine going forward from that point.
What a warrior! What a great pickup this year for us. He did a wonderful job all year long, and I really loved his demeanor. I loved the smile. You could see the smile behind the mask when, especially on the close-ups. What a giant, huge grin he has. Seemed like he'd be really great in the dressing room. That must have been really tough for him. Of course, every player wants to play, and the pop didn't sound very good when he mentioned that. That's the first time I've heard that. So, yeah, I mean, what do you do at that point? And at this, he looked good in his game. Without Demko, this team is different. And Silov's, he does represent the next wave. If our window passes with Demko as our number one, then obviously it goes to Silovs at this point. I did feel bad for DeSmith though. I think he did a great job this year, and he deserved a shot. And to get injured after that, his short stint there in the playoffs, I feel for him. So, but thank you, Casey.
Elias, you've long said that you want to be the absolute best that you can be, one of the best players in the NHL. What did you learn from these playoffs that will help you get there in the coming years?
Definitely has made me hungry to get back into playoffs. I believe we have something good building here, but just like on a personal level, just areas that I feel I can be better. Take those stuff into my summer training, talk to my trainers, and try to become an even better player for next year.
I feel he's not telling the whole story. I think that he's keeping some information inside, something, I don't know, you could just see it in his eyes a little bit. I mean, I love Pettersson. He is an unbelievable talent. And for those of you doubting Pettersson in general, remember the Neely trade. You will never win a deal that involves Elias Pettersson leaving the Vancouver Canucks. Never. I mean, sure, there's a small chance, but any trade getting rid of that player, you won't win. So you do not trade an Elias Pettersson, regardless of how you feel after watching him in the playoffs. The things that he can do is special. He is a gifted player. And if we can ever corral this horse, we have something that very few teams will have ever had in their roster, in their stables. So have no fear. He'll get it together. The best news around that is that this management team and coaching staff will figure it out. That's a video unto itself. With Rutherford, Alvin, and Tocchet and company, we are in good hands here, so they will figure it out.
Took a big step this last season. Do you believe that there is another step you can take this off season based on what you saw in the playoffs as well?
Yeah, I think that, I believe that, the work you put in the summer, you can, really get a lot better than, some other players that maybe don't put that work in, and over a course of a couple of years that can really help your game. So I feel like this year I was able to, play at a high level. And
that was an interesting comment about players who don't put in the work. Very interesting.
What did you learn in the postseason? Because you've always said that's the true measure.
Yeah, for sure. It's a good question. I think just, again, it's so quick and it's so abrupt. It's been, 2 days. I haven't really wanted to think about hockey up to this point, to be honest. But I think that just learning how tight the game is out there, and it's obviously, I think the travel was different. Obviously, in the bubble, we didn't have to move, but I did, get an experience there with how tight it is and how physical it is, and playing the same team over and over. But I think just going in next year, I'm just going to, focus on the same things that I've always focused on, and try to, continue to get better as a player in person, and become a better leader. And I think all those things will help me and the team.
It's interesting. He's obviously not a huge body. It'll be interesting if he puts on more muscle and more mass onto his frame. Years ago, Brent Sobel did that, where he bulked up over a summer and lost a ton of mobility. I don't think Quinn Hughes will do that. It'll be curious if he tries to get a little bit stronger and how his body matures, because he's so slight. But that's also part of his advantage, how agile he is based on his height, size, weight distribution, and his edges. So I don't think he'll get too much bigger, but it'll be curious to see, because obviously he took a pounding and he was a target, so that's obviously an issue. But it's not new for any smaller NHLer.
Just a quick follow on the power play. I mean, it's kind of an embarrassment of riches. It looks so good on paper. You've always contended this is a top 5 potential power play in the league. Why did it struggle so much?
Yeah, I mean, there's some frustrations with that, and we should be better. And again, it is really, it's only been 2 days, and I haven't really thought about it too much. But as I'm sure the summer comes along, really think about different things and what we want to see on it and how we can be better at it. And I mean, it obviously is frustrating just because we should be, you know, an elite group, and we did really well against Edmonton in the regular season on the power play, and that couldn't really transfer over to the playoffs.
That's again, what's not spoken is what he's thinking. Anyone that's played on a good team and you have certain guys on your team that you can't count on, and then they don't show up at certain points. You know what the banter's like in the room. You know what the talk. You know, I wonder if this is Pettersson that he's thinking about. I'm not saying he's calling him out, but it is human nature. But he was injured. Pettersson's injured. But the frustrations are real when guys are looking down the bench and looking at that guy and saying, "What's wrong with you? Let's go. Do your thing," right? So every guy that's played on any team, especially with talented players, knows exactly what that's like. And Quinn's no different.
Elias, just you mentioned the knee, you were at such a high, like you were the third star of the month for the whole league in January. When you look back at your season now, what's the takeaway for you? What are you looking at from last year or from this season for your lesson for next year?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't thought of it that much, but there's stuff I did well, stuff I can do better. Stuff.
You guys still going?
Sarcastic. Say again.
Just, you were at such a high at the end of January, and then obviously this knee problem slows you down. You look back at the season, what's the takeaway you think for you?
I was just counting backwards. If that was 2 months, then we're talking February. So, but that's interesting. Just tracking backwards from April, March, February. So February, March, April. Is that 3 months, 2 months? So if it's all of early April playoffs, so we're talking mid-February.
Learn from what I can do better, and think us to get some experience in the playoff will only makes us want to get back there again. So I know what I need to work on.
And then Brock, your season was remarkable, given everything. How do you look at this season? How do you repeat this season next year?
So I haven't thought about it a ton, just in my short time of reflection. I've thought about it, but really driven, especially, getting this taste with these guys in the playoffs. We were right there. We were so close, and I think that's really exciting, and that's going to continue to push me this summer.
I mean, does Brock get 50? I think he'll get close again. Don't know about next year. I mean, everything this year was a bonus as far as I'm concerned. If he gets close again, I mean, wow, that's incredible.
I had the order wrong.
Quinn, just wanted to ask, it's your first full season with Rick talking behind the bench. We hear from him every day, but I'm curious, what are some of the things that he's brought to the players that maybe we don't talk about or we don't see now that you've had him for a full year?
Very approachable and has been in your shoes and has that open door policy. So I think with the structure and the person he is, I say those are the two things that are very rare that, sometimes a lot of other, people aren't lucky enough to have.
I mean, Talkett was incredible. I didn't agree with it, the timing of it, with Boudreau out and Talkett in. I thought they could have waited till the summer, but hindsight is 2020. How do you argue with the results? How do you argue with, what we all saw? I'll do a video on Talkett. I have a lot of thoughts about what a different style of coach he is. He is literally, before our eyes, in my mind, revolutionized what the modern coach does. I posted on Facebook a little while ago, and I'll do a little short on that one, but Talkett's been unbelievable.
Elias, considering this season, the speculation around your contract, that deal getting done, the injury that you sustained midway through, going into a sort of quieter summer, how much do you welcome that? How can you use that for fuel next season?
Yeah, it will be nice to get a break from everything. Obviously, it's been a very noisy season in terms of contracts, and how shit I've been the last 3 months. It'll be nice to just get a break from that, but I'm just excited to get a little break here and then get back on the horse again, train hard, and come in best shape possible for next season.
I think that's the most honest answer we've gotten out of him so far. I think that's exactly what he's thinking. He wants a break. Not to say he doesn't deserve it, but yeah, that looked very authentic and very real as far as answers go.
I just want to ask Brock, there's been a lot of talk, obviously, about your goal scoring totals, but over the years, you've been able to work on your defensive game. You had a big defensive bounce back this season, the work at the net front, the deflections, and we almost sort of saw it all come together in the playoffs before your absence in Game 7. When you think about the way you were able to elevate your game, is there something you can take from that in terms of the process that you've put into making yourself a more well-rounded player?
Yeah, I think it just proves to myself that I think there's another level there. And, I know at least in my line, we took a ton of pride in, when we were playing against Connor and in the playoffs to try and shut him down. And, even top lines throughout the year. And, it's a role I really haven't had before. And I try to embrace it as best as I could and just feel that, that we can go out there and we can shut down those top guys. I think it gives a lot to, my confidence, and, it's something that I definitely think I can build off of for next year.
I mean, I found that very interesting that Miller was the line to try and shut down McDavid. I mean, it worked mostly, but the cost was that Miller's production went way down. Besser kept going. So that's a trade-off. Obviously, the results, we didn't get the result, but it was an interesting strategy. Yeah. To think about that more. Do you put the third line on him, on McDavid, or do you do Miller? Obviously, Miller's going to get more ice time, so I guess that's the rationale, is that every second shift, if McDavid's out, so is Miller and Besser. So, obviously, that's why I'm not an NHL coach, but, doing the little bit of coaching that I've done, I'd probably get there too. It wasn't my first thought though, but in just thinking about it right now, I don't know if you have much choice in that. And for the most part, it worked.
Brock, if I can take you back between 6 and 7, you've been through a lot in your personal life for perspective, but in terms of just hockey and injuries, is that the hardest news you've had about missing a game, and it turns out to be a 1-goal game? Do you feel like you could have made a difference?
Of course I feel I can make a difference. Especially like talk about the defensive game.
Didn't feel like a great question, but
I thought we did a pretty good job on Connor for most of the series, and obviously home ice, and you can get your line against them or whatever. But I'm crushed. Like I wish I could have been out there with the guys, and obviously a 1-goal game. I felt that, of course I'm sitting there and saying, I could have scored in this game. You never know what would have happened if I played, but I would have done anything to be out there. And, I asked if I could play and try and push them, but obviously the risks are too big. And, I had to protect my future and don't want, health issues moving forward.
Well, it's about what I expected. A couple of little surprises. The nonverbals. Pettersson's last answer. Yeah, I'm glad I waited. That's the year-end press conference number 1. There's more to go with some of the other players and the coaches and Alvin. But that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for spending some time with me and watching this video. I know we're all busy, so I thank you very much. Have a great day, and remember, until then, there's only one goal: win that cup.